Hey everybody, welcome to another video for the Adobe XD project for pulmonary pathophysiology. Today we're going to be looking at layer 2, which is due on class time on April 4th. And I'm first just going to run through the rubric as I did for the last video. So the first section of the rubric for layer 2 is content. And you are going to be providing firstly an expansion on the physiological content that we've been learning from Unit 2. This could include pulmonary blood flow, causes of hypoxemia, ventilation and perfusion, gas transport, things like that, wherever you see fit to put into the project. That's where you're going to put it in from your research. And then common methods and tests of diagnoses and possible treatments are also things that you're going to find from your research and you're going to put into your projects as accordingly. And then the interactivity is the second part. And this is what I'm going to be helping you guys out with today. So each frame should include multiple options or menu items that can be selected and explored, movement that creates interest in pursuing more, and then customized user experiences. And then transition and audio. I'm also going to be helping you guys with this today. Each frame should have smooth transitions that are appealing and exciting, logical transitions corresponding to understanding of a topic more deeply with each level, and then audio with a purpose and corresponds to images on screen when appropriate. We're just going to forget about number 3. We're not going to be doing audio for the Adobe XD project, so no need to worry about that. But let's jump in right now with the interactivity section. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is to create a method for moving around with your project. So I'm just going to start by building a button system for you guys, and then you can kind of use that as your way of navigating the project or getting started. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go into the design tab, and then I'm going to select a rectangle, and then I'm going to draw it right here. Note that I can make it either a rectangle or a kind of a pill shape. I'm just going to keep it as a rectangle. And then I am going to change its color. Let's say I'll choose this color. I already have some pre-specified ones here. And then let's say I want to create a button that takes me to, let's see, the project overview section of my project. So I'm going to take a text box and I'm going to type the word overview in here. And then I don't want it to be red, so I am going to change the fill color to white. And then I'm going to change the size to that. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take both of these items and I'm going to group them together. So I'm going to go into the layers, and then I'm going to take overview, and then I'm going to control or command click. So I select both and then go to object, group. So that makes these together. And then with this selected, I'm going to click on this plus button over here to make it a component. So now you can see that this item here has become a component, and I'm going to rename this to something like button so I can keep track of it. So now that we have this button, we're going to apply some settings to it so it can be modified, and then and its settings can be kept track of. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, with this highlighted, I'm going to check off this padding block here, and then I'm going to change its dimensions to 10 and 10 for the over under, and then I'm going to make it 20 and 20 for the sides. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to, if I decide to change what letters are in the box, like say if I want to create a button that sends it to overview, I can have overview typed here. But if I wanted to have it sent to sources, all I would have to do is double click on the text box and I can change it to sources. And you can see that the box actually follows the amount of text that's put in there. So that's really helpful. But we're just going to keep it to overview for now. Okay. And then the next thing that we are going to do is to create something called a hover state. So this is going to be something that's just going to add to the interactivity of your project. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this, and then we're going to add a state called the hover state. And we're going to name it that. So now you can see that you have two states for your button, but they look the same. So we want to change the hover state so it looks different from the default state. So we're going to click on the hover state, and then we can zoom in here, and then we can double click on the area of the box that is pink, and you can see that the fill is that for the hover state, but let's say I want to change it to something like this instead. So I can change the fill, or I can change the border. I can also change the shading. I can change it so that the background blurs. I can change the text size. I can change anything I want about it, but I'm just going to change the background and the filler for now, just, to give an example. And now you can see that if I click over this object in general and go between the default state and the hover state, you can see the difference between them now. So that's the important distinction that I want you guys to notice there. And then if I go into the prototype section of the project, you can see that there are two states now. So, and if I click into the default state, you can see that there's this little thing here that shows that the when somebody hovers over this, it's going to change. So when I actually preview this project, if somebody drags their mouse over the overview button, it'll change color. So that's the whole idea behind the hover state. And so now what I'm going to do is with this default state checked off in the prototype section, I am going to be able to modify how that state is reached. So going from the default state to the hover state when I put my mouse over it. So trigger is hover, meaning when I put my mouse over it, the type is auto animate, destination hover state, and then easing, I'm going to make it so that it's none, and then I'm going to make it so that 0 seconds, because creating a hover state and moving to the hover state should, at least in my opinion, be more of an immediate process. So that's what I'm going to do with that. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to, now that I have the basic settings for this button, I can set it up anywhere I want in my project. So I'm going to go back to the design section of my project, make sure this cursor is clicked, and I'm going to put it up here. So let's say, for argument's sake, that's where I want my overview button to be. We'll say I want it somewhere up here. And then let's say I also want to create a, let's say I also want to create a button that takes me to the sources. Okay, no problem. So I can go into my libraries, and I notice I have a button here. I can drag it in, and then I have another button here. And you see these diamonds are not filled in anymore. That is giving you the option to override this. So it means it's a separate object. So what I'm going to do is I am going to change the text within this like we did before and make it sources. And then what I'm also going to have to do is change that in the hover state as well. Sources. And then you have to go in and change it back to the default state. And then if you go to the prototype section, you will see that the animation that takes it to the hover state was retained from the last one, as well as what the hover state looks like. So that's why having a component button for all of your different buttons is really useful. So you don't have to make it over and over and over again. So that's really helpful. And then if we go back to the design section, let's say I want to create a couple more buttons. I don't think I need that many examples, but let's say I want to create one more for diagnosis. I will create one more button for diagnosis. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with this, and then do the same thing for the hover state. And then change back to the default state. You can check the prototype again, and it will be the same thing with the no easing and duration of 0 seconds with how it approaches the hover state. Okay. And now I know I've kind of been throwing a lot of information at you guys right now, but now we're going to go in and see what it actually looks like. to activate these hover states. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I need to set a flow for my project. So, and that this is going to be a really important topic, and you will certainly, just a flag out there, you will lose points if you do not add a flow to your project, because if you don't add a flow, then you will not, when you submit your project for grading, you might not start your project when you enter it into a web browser. It might not start at your title page. So the important part here is you just need to go into your prototype section, and you see when you have artboards highlighted, there are little home icons in the top left corner of your artboards. You want to go to your title page. You want to click on the home button, and that's going to create flow 1. So you want to make sure that your flow 1 has been created so that your project starts in the right place. Okay. And then you are going to, now we are going to preview this. So I'm going to start a new share. And hopefully y'all can see this, but as you can see, if I hover over this, my overview is changing, and then diagnosis is changing with the hover state, and sources is changing. So that's the whole idea behind that. All right. So now back to the original project. The next thing that we're going to do is create some movements between artboards in this project. So now what we're going to do is go to the prototype section, and we're going to click on one of our buttons, say for overview, and then we're going to click on the hover state. And then we're going to say, okay, we want to take a button that says overview. We want to take it to the overview category. So I'm going to take this arrow and I'm going to drag it over to the overview. And then you want to set your settings for that transition. This is now going to be transitioning from artboard to artboard. So you want to make it trigger tap, type, transition, and then destination is overview. Animation, I will do a slide left, and easing, I will do an ease out, and I will do it for 0.3 seconds for argument's sake. Okay, and that's all set. You can also preserve the scroll position if you find that you want to do that in your project. And now we are going to just put that back to the default state, and then we're going to do the pretty much the same thing with all of our other buttons. So you're going to take your arrow from diagnosis and you're going to put it in the diagnosis section. Tap, transition, slide left, ease out, 0.3 seconds. And you'll see that these preferences are saved among the buttons, but you can change their destinations without problem. So very helpful stuff. So now you can take the sources and you can drag it over to sources. And then it is going to have all of your preferences saved. All right, great. And now we have all of our transitions for our buttons, but now we need to create a way to get back to the original part of our project. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new category of buttons. So I'm going to go back to the design section. I'm going to create another rectangle, and then I'm going to make it a similar color. It's fine, just use your stylistic choice. I'm just doing this for a sample project, so bring that to the front. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make, the first thing that I'm going to do is make these little icons that I've created here components. So I'm going to click on these, and I'm going to make that a component, and then I'm going to make this a component. And then I'm going to add another text box that is home. Okay, and now I'm going to do something very similar to the original button, but the reason why I'm doing it differently is because now we have an icon, and we want to make sure that the icon and the text are kind of centered with each other. So that's why I'm doing it in a different way. So now we have home, icon, and the rectangle. Now we're going to create a component out of those items. So now we have this home button here, And now we are going to activate the padding, and we are going to have, we'll do 10 and 10 again. And then let's do 15 and 20. Let's do 15 and 15. Let's do 15 and 10. That's fine. So now we have our home button. So that's going to be lining up right there eventually. And now we can set our hover state for that if we want to, which we can select the background. I'm just going to change the fill and the border again, but you can do it whatever you stylistically please. And then go back to the default state. And now something helpful that I want to tip you guys off to is, now that you've created this like home button, you can copy and paste it into wherever you want. But you can also, if you want to, you can create something like a back button if you decide that you want to go into one page and then another, but you want to create the option to go back into another page instead of going all the way home. You can create a back button out of it. And all you have to do for that is go to your libraries section. And if you want to, you can replace this home button by double clicking on the home, and then you can take your icon and you can replace it. And then you can move that over and create your home button. And then you can change the text to back if you'd like. So that's one of your options that you can do. So use that at your discretion. And then we are going to go ahead and apply this to all of our frames of our project. So I'm going to apply the home button over here. It doesn't need to be in the title section. So go to the prototype section. Now we can set the hover state animation like I did previously. I want it to be, I want there to be the no easing with 0 seconds. And then if I want to set a destination, I can set this to transition. And then let's say I want to do push up for, and then ease out for 0.3 seconds. And that's fine. And that is all set. And then I'm just going to really quickly rename this button with icon. And then if I want to paste this button into anywhere else I want, then I can do that. And you can see that these things were preserved. And then the hover state, that's preserved as well. It'll take it to your title page. Great. And then I want to paste it over here as well. And then it will also paste that in there pretty easily. So now, before you go back into your original, before we test this whole project out, you have to make sure everything is in its original format in the default state and not in the hover state. And then we can go ahead and test things out. But first, I did just want to show you guys one more quick little trick. And that's called setting a toggle state for something. And so the first thing that I'm going to do here is let's say I want to create a system where I can reveal something if I want to by clicking on something. So I'm going to create something just for argument's sake here. So I'm actually going to first import an image that I want. Let's say I want to import this image. Oops. So I want to import this image and I want to create a system where I can reveal it if I want to. So I'm just going to create a rectangle over it. It's really just tacky. But say click on me. And then I want to change the color of the text to something like red. And then I'll center it. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is click on layers and then click on all of those images and things that are associated. And then I'm going to make a component out of it. You can call it something else if you want, but it's really just whatever you'd like. And then you can create something called a toggle state out of this. So now we have this item with a default state and a toggle state. And now what I'm going to do is click into the component in the toggle state, and then I can right click or control click on the text box and hide it in the toggle state. And then I can also hide the rectangle in the toggle state. So that way, just the image is showing. So now you can see the difference between the default state and the toggle state. Perfect. So now we are ready to preview this whole project. So you're going to click on flow 1, and then you're going to click on the play button in the top right corner to preview. And now I'm going to reshare my screen so that you all can see it. So now we have my project title page here. Let's say if I want to go to the overview, I can click on overview, and you can see that it's hovering properly, overview, and it has a transition. And then, oh, I see something on here that says click on me. I'm obviously going to click on that. Oh, there it is. Okay. And then if I click on it, it'll go back. And then I can go home if I want to, and it'll take me home. Diagnosis. And then I also set a scrollable page here, but you would normally want to retain the scrolling position on these. And then if I want to go to sources, I can go to sources. And that's pretty much it, guys. Oops. I did not mean to do that, but so anyways, that's pretty much the whole idea behind creating buttons and creating transitions in your projects. So I've created a way for you guys, I've shown you guys a way to create a system of buttons that you guys can work on in tandem and modify them, and make sure that you can create some creative ways to set things like hover states and make transitions between artboards, and also do some cool things. Let's say if you had like a diagram, or if you had like a picture or something that you wanted to show somebody, then you can use like hover states to highlight things if people put their cursor over something, or you can use toggle states to reveal things, or move things in different directions if people click on them. And then there's just a bunch of there's a wealth of information on Adobe XD just online if you're more curious. But I hope you guys took something away from this, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions on anything, but I wish you luck on completing your layer 2. Thanks so much. Bye.